Good morning, 8th grade. What's up? So we have started working with the Pythagorean theorem. And we know that helps us find the sides, missing sides of a right triangle. Now remember, it only works with a right triangle. It's got a right angle. And we know the parts of the triangle, the two shorter sides that are touching the right angle are called your legs. And the long side is called your hypotenuse. Okay? That's going to be important later because sometimes they may just say, they may not show you a picture of the triangle. They may just tell you the lengths of the legs and say, find the hypotenuse. And we just use this formula here, right? And we know we always draw our line when we solve any kind of equation, all right? So, today, we've been doing it where they give us the two legs. They give us the A and the B and we find C. Today we're going to talk about what happens if they give us C and one leg and we have to find the other leg, okay? So it's not really any harder. It's just, you gotta make sure you put the numbers in the correct spots, okay? So that's all we have to worry about. We know the legs always go in A, B. It doesn't matter which one goes where. And your hypotenuse, the most important one, has to go in C, okay? All right, so I'm gonna erase these words here. And we're gonna talk. We're just going to get right into this and start solving them, okay? I think that's the easiest way to get on it. So, we will say that we know that this side is 17 centimeters, and we'll say this side is 15 centimeters, and we want to find this side, okay? This should be an A, by the way. So they usually put an A or a B here. Sometimes they don't. They put different letters, but it really doesn't matter. We just have to know that these two sides are the legs, right? So we don't know A, so I'm going to write A squared. We do know B, just 15, don't forget the squared. And then we know C, which is 17 squared, right? Once again, don't forget the squared, okay? So from there, and I'm encouraging you guys to use a calculator and to use Google and to use Siri and whatever you need to do to find the square roots and to find these squares, okay? So this is not 30. It's not 15 times 2. It's 15 times 15. It's a big number. So this is 225. This is 17 times 17. Not 17 times 2, so this is 289. And this is A squared, right? Don't forget our plus. Okay, so we basically just have a two-step equation here. Want to get the A by itself, right? So we subtract 225. And I get 64. And those cancel out, right? A squared. Don't forget the squared. Very important, okay? Because this isn't our answer. Our answer is not 64. So we have to get rid of the squared, which means we have to find the square root. So we got to find the square root of 64. Now here's one thing where I'm going to tell you it's going to get tricky. When you do these on a computer program, they may just say, is the answer square root of 64? And it is. That's the answer. So it could be square root of 64, or they may want you to find the square root of 64. All right? So I'm going to use calculators for square roots from here on out. Now this one's simple. It's square root of 64 is 8, right? 8 times 8 is 64. So A equals 8. Make sure you don't put like 32 times 2 or 16 times whatever. 16 times 4. They have to be the same number. 8 times 8, 7 times 7, 6 times 6. I'm just encouraging you to use a calculator, okay? So you could say the answer is 8, or you could say the answer is a square root of 64, okay? Sometimes they ask in a multiple choice question, they may put this as the answer, and they don't bother to solve it. I would rather they solve it, but they don't always do that. So I kind of want you to put them both, all right? Square root of 64 or 8, okay? They both mean the same thing, all right? Okay. So in this one, we had to subtract and do some more things to find our answer, okay? So if you use the algebra you already know, you're not going to have any problems with these, okay? So I want to look at one where it doesn't come out even. So I'm going to just make up some numbers. Because not all our square roots are perfect square roots, which we learned earlier in the school year. So I'm going to say this is 8 meters, and this is 14 meters, and we don't know the hypotenuse. So we know that when I write out my formula, I like to, well, we know which ones are the legs, which ones are A and B. We know these are A and B because they're touching the right angle, right? Here's my right angle. So if it's touching the right angle, those have to go in A and B. So in this one, I have 8 squared plus 14 squared. And we don't know the hypotenuse, right? Which is the long side, C squared. So these are like the ones we did the other day, okay? But this one's not going to come out perfect, I don't think. Okay, so 8 times 8, don't forget, the biggest mistake everyone's going to make is they're going to do 8 times 2. Don't make that mistake. It's 8 times 8, which is 64. Then I have 14 times 14, 196 equals C squared, right? Okay. Good. So we add these two together. And I end up with 260 equals C squared. Just add them together, right? Now what do? Well, we're not done. We got to find the square root to get rid of the squared, right? And those cancel out. So I have square root of 260. Now, like I said, we could say that that's the answer, square root of 260. But I want you guys to also solve it, okay? So, because square root of 260 doesn't mean anything to us. And I'm going to put it in the calculator. So if you can't figure out how to put it in your calculator, you can just go to Google and type in the words square root 260. It'll find the answer for you. You can ask Siri, you can do whatever you need to do to find these square roots. Or find a calculator that has a square root button. If you look in your computer, there's a calculator with a square root button in your computer. So you can just look up calculator and it'll have a square root button for you. So what is the square root of 260? Well, it gives us this long answer. 16.1245, and it keeps going on and on and on. It's a long number, right? So it is not a perfect square root. Now I'm just going to have you guys put 2 numbers after the point. 16.12. Now if you look, your hypotenuse should always be a little bit bigger than these two. And it is. It's 16, these are 14 and 8, right? So that's your answer, a 16.12, about. So I'm not going to put an equal sign. Remember from the beginning of the year? When we have square roots that aren't perfect, we put like that squiggly equal sign. It means it's close to 16.12, but not exactly it. All right, let's look at one more, and I'm going to do it quickly, and then we'll call it a day. And that's what we'll do for today, okay? And let's get a little bit tricky. This one I have a rectangle line going through it. And we're going to say that, I'm just going to make up numbers, 13 inches, 5 inches, and we want to find this. Okay, well if you look closely at a rectangle with a line through it, what we have is we have a right triangle right here. Right? There's our right triangle. So we can actually ignore this part of the problem. So to find the distance through a rectangle, it's just a right triangle, right? And we know that, so we have to look at our a squared plus b squared is c squared. And this has to be C, right? Because this is not touching the right angle. So we don't know what C is again in this one. A, I'm going to put 5. B, I'm going to put 13. Don't forget your squares. So once again, I'll keep saying it. 5 times 5, not 5 times 2. So 25. 13 times 13. This is 194 equals c squared, right? So how do we get rid of the squared? square root, right? So my answer could be square root of 194. Or if they want a more detailed answer, you type it in a calculator. And I got 13.92 is close to C, right? So you guys were figuring these out on your own and saying, oh, it's in between 13 and 14. Well, from here on out, we're just using a calculator, and we're going to figure out what it is, okay? Now, it's a lot longer number than this, but just write the first two numbers after the point. So 13.92 about is what C is, okay? All right, so I'm going to give you guys some of these to try today. Take your time, do your best. Have a good one, 8th grade.